High Admiral Xorlith stood inside the observation spire of the Imperial Star Fortress Varelion. His 4 golden eyes narrowed as the holoscreen flickered with static. A soft alarm pulsed in the background, low and irregular, the kind used for non-hostile anomalies. Yet something about it made every officer on the command deck tense. The sensor technician, a young Sarthon with trembling hands, turned toward Xorlith and said, "We've detected a ship crossing into Sector 9 Lambda, sir." Xorlith's brow plates twitched. That sector was a dead zone, patrolled only once every half-cycle. Nothing ever came through the veil. Nebula, not pirates, not traders, not even explorers. It was dark space, a forgotten region of shattered moons and gas storms. The Empire had no outposts there, no colonies, no reason to watch it. Until now. "Origin?" Xorlith asked. The tech hesitated. "Unknown, Admiral. The ship has no beacon, no registry tag, no transponder signal. We can't scan inside it. Our systems bounce off it like light against a black mirror." That made Xorlith turn fully. A silent ship, immune to scans, moving deliberately through empty space. He ordered an immediate long-range visual scan. The holoscreen cleared, replaced by an image that silenced the entire bridge. The vessel appeared massive, flat and angular, almost brutish in design. It was unlike the smooth, elegant curves of Imperial ships. Its hull was jet black, etched with lines that glowed faintly blue. There were no visible weapons, yet its presence alone felt threatening, like a beast holding its breath. One officer whispered, "What is that thing?" Another answered, "It looks old." But it didn't look weak. Xorlith's instincts screamed danger. He dispatched 2 frigates and a cruiser to intercept, instructing them to remain cautious and open a communication channel. As they approached, the strange ship altered course slightly, as if it noticed them and didn't care. Suddenly, a garbled signal burst through the comms. It was short and static-filled, but one phrase crackled through clearly in a tongue no one had heard in centuries. "This is Captain Nora Wexley, United Earthship Revenant." "Stand down." Silence followed. The Empire's database, centuries deep, searched for any reference to United Earth. After minutes, a single result appeared from the pre-collapse era, an entry on a species marked extinct humanity, lost over 300 cycles ago in the Great Silence. No trace, no transmissions, no remains. Dead and gone. And yet, here was a ship bearing their name, with a captain speaking their language. Before the fleet could respond, the Revenant's hull shimmered. One of the intercepting frigates blinked out of existence. No explosion, no debris. Just gone. Sensors showed nothing. Not even radiation. Panic erupted on the command deck. The remaining ships backed away immediately, but the Revenant didn't pursue. It held position like a sentinel, unmoving and silent once more. Back at the fortress, fear began to spread. What kind of weapon could erase a vessel so cleanly? How could a species long believed extinct possess such power? Xorlith contacted the Imperial High Command. "We have encountered an unknown ship of probable human origin. They are not dead, and they are not weak." Across the stars, in gilded palaces and war chambers, the word spread like fire. A Terran ship had returned. But from where? And why now? As night fell on 1,000 Imperial worlds, one question echoed in every corridor of power: that can't be a human battleship. Right, The Imperial Council chamber was quiet, the kind of quiet that comes not from peace, but from fear. High Admiral Exorlith stood before the Grand Vizier and the other council lords, his voice calm but firm as he spoke about the ship that had appeared near the Veil Nebula. The word human hung in the air like poison. For centuries, humanity had been a myth, a name buried in the oldest records, spoken only in historical archives and old war simulations. It was a race long believed to have vanished, consumed by the chaos of deep space or destroyed in wars before the Empire had even reached half of its current territory. Yet now, in a quiet sector where nothing ever happened, a ship had arrived dark, enormous, and silent, except for a single message: Captain Nora Wexley, United Earthship Revenant. The memory of the missing frigate still haunted Olith's thoughts. One moment, it was there, alive, crewed by 230 Imperial officers. The next, it was gone without sound, light, or warning. No fire, no fragments, no trace. Just an empty void where once a warship had flown. The two other ships had escaped, shaken and silent. The Revenant had not moved since, floating in the shadow of a dead moon, watching but not attacking. It was as if the ship was waiting. The Council demanded answers. Who were these humans? Where had they been? How had they returned with such power? Sorlith gave the only answer he could. They did not know. The Empire's history had gaps, and some of those gaps had just come back to life. The Council approved a new mission, this time with care and diplomacy. A delegation ship would approach the Revenant, not to confront, but to communicate. The vessel chosen was the Cerulean Dawn, a diplomatic cruiser with soft shields and bright lights, built to show peace, not strength. Aboard were scholars, linguists, and Ambassador Krell, a skilled negotiator from the Vorian houses. As the Cerulean Dawn approached the Revenant, sensors showed no signs of aggression. The alien ship was massive, its hull jagged and unfamiliar, but beautiful in its own way, like a predator carved from darkness and starlight. It had no escort, no support fleet, no visible defense grid. And yet, no one doubted it could destroy them all. The moment the Cerulean Dawn reached visual range, a single shuttle detached from the Revenant. Small, silent, and unarmed, it glided through the void like a drop of oil in water. It did not broadcast warnings or codes. It simply flew toward them. After a pause, the Cerulean Dawn opened its bay. The shuttle docked, and the doors opened with a hiss. What stepped out did not look like a monster or machine, but a human, an actual human, tall, wrapped in a thick exosuit marked with faded symbols. The words U.A.S. Revenant barely visible on her shoulder. Her name was Captain Nora Wexley, and she was very much alive. Her face was calm but unreadable, her movements sharp and practiced. The delegation stared at her, unsure what to say. Wexley looked around and spoke in perfect Imperial standard. I come in peace. I come to talk. The room remained still until Ambassador Krell stepped forward. You are human? He asked, uncertain. Wexley nodded. Born on Mars, raised on the outpost stations of the Eighth Belt, I serve what remains of Earth's command, and I bring a message. The delegation led her into the main chamber, where holoscreens flickered and recorders buzzed. Wexley sat with her hands open, showing no threat. She explained how humanity had not died, but disappeared. Centuries ago, after the great collapse of the Gate networks, Earth had lost contact with its colonies. Governments fell, War spread, and the Sol system became isolated. Instead of reaching out, humanity went inward. They survived in the shadows, rebuilt quietly, and turned to hidden technologies long thought lost. They explored the dead zones of the galaxy, seeking what others had forgotten. Wexley spoke of deep cryofleets, generational ships, and artificial minds that could simulate entire civilizations. The Revenant, she explained, was one of Earth's relics, a ship from the old wars, reforged and reborn. It was sent as a scout, not a conqueror. We wanted to see what had become of the stars, she said, to see if the galaxy had healed or grown worse. The ambassador asked why the Revenant had destroyed the frigate. Wexley paused. They fired first, she said. We didn't want to respond, but the Revenant's AI is bound to protect itself. The weapon was fast. Too fast. It left nothing behind. That's not a threat. That's a shield. Still, the Council was uneasy. The idea of a lost human race, now returned with ships that could erase matter, was terrifying. But Wexley made no demands. She offered no ultimatums. She offered information. In exchange for peaceful terms, she would share parts of humanity's history logs, maps, scientific data, even a few relics from Earth's past. The delegation listened, skeptical but intrigued. Back on the Revenant, the ship remained still, almost lifeless from the outside. But inside, it was anything but quiet. Its core AI, known as Athena, watched everything. It studied the Empire's technology, its tactics, its weaknesses. It had no desire for war, but was prepared for one. As hours passed, the Cerulean Dawn sent encrypted reports back to the Empire, each one more detailed than the last. Wexley answered every question, even the hard ones. Why come back now? Because the outer galaxy was changing. Because signs of something older, darker, and more dangerous had begun to rise in the unexplored sectors. We're not your enemy, she said, but we may be the only ones ready for what's coming. She described signals from the edge of known space patterns that didn't match any known language, frequencies that twisted standard sensors into chaos. Earth had seen things the Empire had ignored, and the Revenant wasn't the only ship they had sent. It was the first. Sorlith, watching from the fortress, received the final report and sat in silence. The humans had returned, and they were not afraid. One ship had already shaken the Empire's calm. What would happen when more came? And more importantly, were they truly offering peace? Or just waiting for the Empire to blink? The Council debated endlessly, torn between caution and curiosity. But in the dark corners of Imperial space, where signals could vanish without notice, something else had begun to stir. A new transmission, buried deep in static, echoed from beyond the black. A sound, not human, not imperial. Something old. And in the shadows of the Revenant's command deck, Athena listened to it quietly, her voice whispering into the dark. They heard us. They're coming. The Imperial High Command was restless. Across the stars, from the palace worlds of the core to the barren outposts at the galaxy's edge, people whispered about the dark ship near the Veil Nebula, the one they called the Revenant. The story of its sudden appearance had spread far and wide, and the tale of the vanished frigate sent fear through even the bravest admirals. A single vessel had erased an Imperial warship without leaving behind a scrap of metal. That kind of power was not just unusual, it was terrifying. Many believed the humans were bluffing, using old technology dressed in mystery to scare the Empire. Others argued that only fools doubted the warning, but no one truly understood the truth. Captain Nora Wexley remained aboard the Revenant, silent after her meeting with the Imperial diplomats. She had said all she wanted to say. The humans had returned not as conquerors, but as watchers. Yet even silence can sound like a threat when it comes from something no one understands. The Empire tried to study the ship from afar. Long-range scans revealed very little. Its outer hull seemed to shift, reflecting and absorbing energy in strange ways. Its shape appeared to change slightly between images, like it was never quite the same vessel twice. Some said it was a living ship, others said it was haunted. But still, it did not move. It waited. Then, without warning, the Empire decided to act. A fleet of 50 Imperial cruisers was sent to test the ship's defenses. Officially, it was called a research operation. Unofficially, it was a display of strength. High Admiral Zorlith did not approve of the decision, but he had been overruled. The Council had grown tired of questions. They wanted answers, and if those answers came through force, so be it. The fleet approached slowly, with shields raised and weapons on standby. The Revenant did not react. At first, it appeared as if it didn't notice them or didn't care. The ships surrounded it in a wide formation, careful not to get too close. And then one of them, Captain Lorvan's ship, the Hammerlight, sent a low-powered energy beam at the Revenant shield to test its response. That was the moment everything changed. The Revenant pulsed once, a faint ripple of blue light across its hull, and the Hammerlight was no longer there. Not destroyed, not shattered, gone. Like someone had erased it with a brushstroke. The remaining 49 ships panicked, pulling back, sending alerts, demanding orders. Before High Command could even reply, the Revenant shifted. Its hull moved like flowing metal, opening along its sides and back, revealing a strange lattice of glowing weapons. Not cannons, not missiles, just light. Light and silence. Then, without sound or warning, 30 of the ships went dark. Their systems crashed. Engines stopped. Weapons froze. Their crews could do nothing but watch as their ships became powerless shells drifting in space. The remaining 19 jumped away, running like prey from a predator they had never imagined. The Revenant did not chase. It simply returned to stillness, weapons vanishing, hull settling. It had not fired in anger. It had defended itself. Across the galaxy, the message was clear. Do not test the patience of this ship. High Admiral Zorlith stood in the command center of the Star Fortress and stared at the screen showing the battle aftermath. He said nothing. No one did. There were no cheers, no outrage, only fear. No one had seen anything like it. This was not just technology. They had seen advanced weapons before. This was something else. Something beyond their understanding. A ship out of time. A relic of a forgotten era that had returned with power they could not measure. The Council convened again, this time in near panic. Voices were raised. Some called for negotiation, others for war. A few warned that the Revenant might be only the first. What if more came? What if this was only a scout, and the real Terran fleet was still out there, hidden in the black, watching? Then came a message from Captain Wexley. Simple, calm, delivered in perfect standard. Do not force us to show you everything. We seek peace, but we will not kneel. The past is not as dead as you think. Humanity is not what it once was. The council didn't know what to do. No one did. Even their most advanced AI systems could not understand the Revenant's technology. Some theorized that the ship was powered by a form of dark matter fusion that used space-time itself as fuel. Others believed it had access to something far worse, ancient alien tech buried in the void, repurposed by human minds that had been alone too long. Meanwhile, reports began arriving from the farthest edges of the galaxy. Strange readings, unknown signals, ships vanishing, not human, not imperial, something else, something darker. It seemed the humans had returned just in time for the galaxy to face a threat no one had yet seen. And maybe they hadn't come back to conquer. Maybe they had come back to help. But trust was hard-earned, and fear ran deep. The Empire, proud and vast, now stood on shaking ground. A single human ship had changed the balance of power. What would happen when the others arrived? What secrets did the Revenant still hide within its shifting hull? What was Athena, the ship's AI, truly capable of? And why had she said, in her soft voice, "We are not your enemy, but we are your mirror"? Questions echoed across star systems, unanswered and growing. And somewhere, in the cold dark between galaxies, something ancient was listening. I am the heart of the imperial capital world. Within the soaring marble towers of the Citadel of Stars, the Grand Council of the Empire assembled under urgent order for the first time in a century, and the air inside the great hall felt like static before a storm, tense and heavy with unsaid fear. The circular chamber, usually echoing with calm debate, now pulsed with voices raised in alarm, all focused on one thing: the arrival of the human ship known as the Revenant. The councillors, dressed in flowing robes marked with symbols of their sectors, argued fiercely under the dome of crystal that shimmered with holographic constellations. At the center stood High Admiral Ugsorlith, silent and straight-backed as his recorded briefing played again before the full assembly. It showed the moment the hammerlight vanished, followed by the sudden disabling of 30 other cruisers without so much as a flash of heat or light. The room quieted when Captain Nora Wexley's face appeared on the screen, calm and composed, as her voice spoke her now famous line, "Do not force us to show you everything." That sentence had become a shadow across every world in the Empire. No one in the council knew how to respond, not truly. Some called for immediate surrender and treaty talks, convinced that humans were only pretending to be peaceful while planning their rise. Others demanded retribution, blind to the power clearly displayed. But most were caught in the middle, uncertain and scared, wondering how the galaxy could shift so suddenly after thousands of years of stability. The Emperor, an aging figure rarely seen in public, entered slowly and took his place on the high seat, raising a frail hand to call for silence. His voice, thin but steady, filled the chamber. "This is not just about power," he said. "It is about truth. We were told the humans were extinct. Now we know they are not. And they are not what we remember. The question is, what else have we forgotten?" That question struck deep. The Empire had always prided itself on its knowledge, its order, its ability to map and control the stars. But the Revenant was proof of a failure in that belief. Something had been hidden from history, and now it had returned wearing a face they once knew, but with a strength they could not comprehend. Sorlith was asked to speak, and he told the council what he truly believed. He did not see the humans as invaders. He saw them as something older and more focused. They had not lashed out. They had only defended. They had given warnings. They had held back. That, Zorath said, should scare us more than anything, because it means they understand the cost of war better than we do. At that, Counselor Brax of the Outer Rim rose and demanded to know if the rumors were true. Had there been strange readings from the void beyond the Veil Nebula? Had Imperial scouts vanished near the forgotten edges of space? Zorath confirmed it. Unexplained signals had been picked up in the deep sectors, the kind that bent instruments, that carried unnatural patterns, that echoed like whispers in ancient languages no species had ever spoken. And then, to the shock of all present, a representative from the Imperial Archives stepped forward. She was not a counselor, but she had been summoned for a reason. Her name was Tharavel, a historian and data seer from the Vault of Lost Truths. She presented a single artifact, a crystal cube pulled from the oldest restricted vaults, showing the last recorded image of Earth before it went silent. What stunned the room was not the planet itself, but the fleet that had been seen leaving it centuries ago. Black ships. Angular. Familiar. One looked almost identical to the Revenant. The humans prepared, Tharavel said. They knew something was coming. We have records that suggest they weren't destroyed. They disappeared on purpose. They left to find something, or someone. And now they were back. She then showed recent data from scout drones placed deep in the ghost sectors, blurry images of large unknown structures in motion, things that seemed to shift as if they were not completely part of space. These were not Terran, nor Imperial, nor of any known species. Perhaps, she whispered, this is what they've been watching for. The council fell into stunned silence. For the first time, the pieces began to fit. The humans had not returned because they wanted to reclaim lost glory. They had returned because something worse was coming. Something that required ships like the Revenant. Something they could not fight alone. That possibility changed the tone of the meeting. The focus shifted from fear of the humans to fear of what had driven them back into the known galaxy. After hours of argument, the council agreed on one thing: they needed more answers, and they needed them now. A second diplomatic mission would be sent, but not from the Empire alone. A united envoy would include representatives from the neutral worlds, the trade guilds, and even the ancient Varnathi oracles. If this was truly a threat to the galaxy, it had to be faced together. The Revenant agreed to receive the envoy. As the diplomats prepared to meet the human captain once again, questions still buzzed through the stars like static. What was coming from the edge of space? What had the humans seen out there? And if the Revenant was just a scout, what did the rest of Earth's fleet look like? In the deep silence of her command deck, Captain Nora Wexley stood before a store map glowing with red markers that moved ever closer to known space. Athena, a ship's AI, whispered from the walls. We have 3 cycles, maybe less. They are waking. And as the envoy's ships began their slow journey toward the Veil Nebula, the galaxy watched, waited, and feared not just the humans, but what had chased them home. The ships of the envoy glided through the black sea of space, their hulls gleaming under distant stars, their hearts heavy with questions and fear, carrying voices of diplomacy, doubt, and a fragile hope that the humans, those once forgotten children of Earth, could be reasoned with. Before a greater darkness arrived, and as the Revenant grew larger in their viewports with every passing moment, the diplomats aboard the lead vessel, the Seren Light, prepared for what none of them fully understood, their minds weighed down by old legends and new truths, Because if the whispers were right, and something older than even the Empire itself was coming, then the galaxy might soon be a battlefield unlike any seen before. And as they approached, the Revenant responded without weapon or threats, its hull shimmering softly as a docking corridor extended like a quiet handshake between strangers on the edge of war. And when the diplomats crossed the threshold, they found themselves not in a warship's cold steel passageways, but in a corridor filled with calm blue light, silent and clean. And at its far end stood Captain Nora Wexley, her uniform black and simple, her eyes calm but tired, as if she had seen too much and expected more, and she welcomed them with a quiet nod and words that echoed gently. You came faster than expected, and after brief introductions, they were led into a central chamber that felt more like a sanctuary than a command center, its walls showing slow-turning star maps and holograms of strange symbols that none of the delegates recognized. And then came Athena, the AI of the Revenant, her voice soft but strong, her presence felt even without a body, and she greeted them not as enemies, but as fellow travelers in a dangerous time, telling them what the Council had feared. Yes, something was coming, something had already reached the edge of known space, something the humans had been watching for hundreds of years in exile, something they called the Shroud, not a species, not a machine, but a force that consumed light and thought and memory. Behind only silence and ruin, and the humans had learned of it long ago during their great expansion, when they went too far, too fast, and opened a gate that was never meant to be opened, and what they saw beyond it was not life but hunger, and so they ran, leaving Earth and the old colonies behind, hiding in the folds of space, building ships like the Revenant, not to conquer, but to warn. And for generations, they had trained and watched and waited, not for revenge, but for readiness. And now that the Shroud had begun to touch Imperial fringe worlds, those same vanished outposts whose signals had gone dark, there was no more time for fear or pride, only unity. And though some among the envoys still doubted, most saw the truth in Nora's eyes and Athena's voice. And when they returned to the Empire, they carried a message not of surrender, but of alliance. And the Council, shocked and shaken, finally began to act, reaching out to the other powers of the galaxy, calling on old friends and former enemies, forming what had not existed in 1,000 years, a united defense force, guided by human knowledge and imperial strength. And as more of Earth's lost ships began to emerge, old and silent and terrible in beauty, the stars began to shift with the weight of purpose, and the Empire was no longer what it had been, no longer a throne of pride, but a network of survivors, thinkers, and warriors preparing for a war not against each other, but against the end itself. And on the day the first wave of the Shroud touched the rim, pulling apart a mining world in complete silence, leaving behind no stone or echo, there was no more doubt, only action, and fleets moved, codes shared, old weapons reawakened. And for the first time, human and imperial ships flew in formation, defending something greater than power, a future, a history, a name. And at the heart of this reborn empire stood the Revenant, silent as ever, watching as others arrived to join its ships once thought destroyed, captains long believed dead, all answering an old call because Earth had never died, it had simply prepared. And now the galaxy would either rise together or fall alone, and somewhere deep in the Shroud, something waited, listening, learning, adapting. But this time, humanity would not run, and neither would the Empire, because together they had remembered what it meant to fight not for conquest, but for survival. And as Captain Wexley watched the First United Fleet leave for the edge of darkness, she whispered to Athena, "We may not win, but we will not be forgotten." And the ship answered with a soft hum of agreement, because in the cold silence between stars they had found not just fear, but reason. And that was the beginning, not of an end, but of something new.